Klaus knelt beside the obsidian altar, his breath ragged and chest heaving. Blood from the gash on his forearm dripped rhythmically onto the intricate alien runes carved into the stone. Each drop ignited a reaction, the lines glowing in vibrant shades of blue and silver, their light pulsing like a heartbeat. The chamber around him thrummed with life, an otherworldly energy that made the air heavy and electric. He glanced at the motionless figure before him. The alien princess, Olivia, lay as if frozen in time. Her blue skin shimmered faintly, the curves of her athletic form accentuated by the strange, form-fitting gray leather dress. Klaus's stomach tightened. She was beautiful in a way that defied human comprehension, but her stillness was unnerving, like a statue carved too perfectly. Another drop of blood fell, and then it happened. The runes exploded with light, a pillar of energy shooting upward, enveloping Olivia in its glow. Her body arched violently, a sharp intake of breath filling the room. Klaus stumbled backward, his hand instinctively going to the hilt of his blade, but he couldn't look away. Her eyes snapped open, gray and swirling like a storm caught in glass. They locked onto his, and in that moment, he felt the bond slam into place, a connection so profound it knocked the air from his lungs. Her voice cut through the charged silence. "You woke me," she said, her tone regal, yet laced with raw power. She rose with a fluid grace, her movements as deliberate as a predator sizing up prey. "You, a human. Do you understand the price you've paid?" Klaus struggled to find words. I needed your help. Our worlds are dying. They said only you could, my help." Her laugh was sharp, cutting through his explanation. "You've bound yourself to me. Your blood has rekindled my life force. Our essences are now one." She stepped closer, the slit in her dress revealing muscular legs that moved with commanding confidence. "If you die, I die. If I fall, so will you. Do you think you were ready for such a burden, warrior?" Klaus straightened, his jaw tightening. "If it means stopping this war, saving innocent lives, then I'm ready for anything." Her lips curved into a dangerous smile. Such bravery, such foolishness, but perhaps... Her hand reached out, brushing against his chest. Klaus gasped as a surge of warmth and power coursed through him. It was as if her energy melded with his, amplifying every sensation. "Perhaps you might survive this bond after all." The room trembled as she stepped back, her eyes never leaving his. "But we are not equals, human. You serve me now. Together, we will end this war, but only because I will it." "And what happens if I don't serve?" Klaus challenged, his voice steady but his heart pounding. Olivia laughed again, her gray eyes narrowing. "Then I ensure you feel every moment of our shared suffering, until you beg for mercy." Her tone softened, a trace of genuine curiosity slipping through. "But I sense something different in you, something stronger." Klaus didn't respond immediately, but his defiance remained evident. He wouldn't bow, not even to her. She seemed to sense it, and for the first time, she inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement. "Then we begin," she said simply. "The rites demand that our bond be tested." Before Klaus could ask what that meant, the runes surrounding the chamber shifted, forming a dome of light. His body tensed as the energy intensified, drawing him into a vortex of memories, not just his own, but hers. He saw visions of a vast alien kingdom, Olivia commanding armies, her people bowing before her as she led them into battle. He felt her triumphs, her sacrifices, her anguish, and in return, she saw him. Every moment of his life, the battles, the scars, the losses, his humanity laid bare for her scrutiny. When it ended, they both stood trembling, their breaths coming in short, sharp gasps. Olivia regarded him with a newfound intensity, a spark of respect glinting in her stormy gaze. "You are stronger than I expected," she admitted, her voice softer now. "But strength alone will not save you. Do you trust me, human?" Klaus met her gaze. "Do you trust me?" Her smile returned, sly and enigmatic. "We'll see." The chamber fell silent as the light dissipated, leaving only the two of them. The bond between them was unbreakable now, a force neither fully understood but couldn't deny. Olivia tilted her head toward the darkened corridor leading out of the chamber. "Our journey begins now. There are those who will want us dead on both our worlds. If you falter, we both perish." "Then I won't falter," Klaus said, his voice steady. With that, the alien princess and the human warrior stepped into the unknown, their fates intertwined in a way neither had imagined. The air outside the chamber was heavy with the scent of ash and iron. Klaus and Olivia emerged into chaos, A sprawling battlefield stretched before them, bathed in the hellish glow of fires raging across the horizon. Alien ships, their sleek bodies shimmering with otherworldly alloys, rained down streams of plasma onto human fortifications. The screams of soldiers, both human and alien, echoed through the air, a chilling symphony of war. Klaus's heart clenched. This wasn't just a battle, it was an apocalypse. Olivia's gray eyes swept across the carnage, her expression unreadable. "Your kind fights bravely," she said, her voice laced with an edge of admiration. "But bravery will not save them if they lack strategy." Klaus tightened his grip on the hilt of his blade, its worn leather handle a comforting reminder of countless battles survived. "We've held them back this long. What makes you think we'll break now?" Her lips curved into a knowing smile. "Because I can feel it, warrior. The bond between us reveals more than your thoughts. It reveals the truth of your desperation." She gestured toward the burning sky. "Your forces are dwindling. Without me, this war ends tonight, with your people's extinction." A deep rumble shook the ground, drawing their attention to the horizon. A massive alien war machine, a towering construct of pulsing blue energy and blackened steel, lurched forward. Its legs crushed everything in its path, human tanks crumpling like paper under its weight. High above, a squadron of alien fighters darted through the clouds, their weapons scorching the air as they strafed human battalions below. Klaus's stomach turned. He'd faced impossible odds before, but this was something else. "Can you stop that?" he asked, nodding toward the monstrous war machine. Olivia arched an elegant brow. "Alone? Number but with you." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "We are stronger together. Do you feel it?" Klaus's pulse quickened as her hand pressed against his chest. The bond between them flared, a surge of power coursing through his veins. His muscles burned with newfound strength, his senses sharpened to razor precision. He could feel her energy melding with his, a force unlike anything he'd ever known. "Fine," he said, his voice firm. "Tell me what to do." Olivia's smile turned wicked. "Follow my lead, human." The battlefield was a blur as they charged into the fray, a whirlwind of motion and destruction. Klaus moved with inhuman speed, his blade cutting through alien soldiers like a hot knife through butter. He felt every movement, every strike amplified by Olivia's presence. She fought alongside him, her hands glowing with raw energy as she hurled devastating blasts at their enemies. The towering war machine loomed closer, its energy cannon charging for a devastating shot. Klaus and Olivia weaved through the chaos, dodging streams of plasma fire and leaping over debris. The ground shook as the machine fired, obliterating an entire human battalion in a single, deafening blast. Klaus's heart sank at the sight of his comrades falling, but Olivia grabbed his arm, her grip firm. "Focus," she commanded. "The machine is vulnerable at its core. We need to get inside." "And how do you suggest we do that?" Klaus asked, breathless. Olivia's eyes glinted with determination. "We take it from the sky." Before he could protest, she wrapped an arm around his waist and leapt upward, her energy propelling them high into the air. Klaus clung to her, the wind roaring in his ears as they soared above the battlefield. Alien fighters swarmed toward them, but Olivia's energy blasts tore through their ranks, clearing a path. They landed with a thud on the war machine's upper deck. Klaus drew his blade, spinning to block an incoming attack from a squad of alien guards. Olivia moved beside him, her movements fluid and precise as she dispatched their foes with terrifying efficiency. "This way!" she shouted, leading him toward a glowing hatch. Inside, the war machine was a maze of pulsating corridors, its walls humming with energy. Klaus could feel the heat radiating from the core as they pushed deeper into its heart. Alien soldiers emerged from every corner, but the bond between him and Olivia made them an unstoppable force. He fought with a ferocity he didn't know he possessed, every swing of his blade guided by an almost instinctive precision. At last, they reached the core, a massive sphere of crackling energy suspended in midair. Olivia extended her hands, her energy flaring as she began to disrupt the machine's systems. Alarms blared, and the walls trembled as the war machine's defenses activated. "Klaus, hold them off!" Olivia shouted. He turned to see a flood of alien reinforcements pouring into the chamber. Gritting his teeth, he charged, his blade flashing as he cut through the enemy ranks. Each strike felt like an extension of Olivia's power, their bond fueling his every move. Behind him, Olivia's energy surged, the core glowing brighter and brighter as she pushed it to critical overload. Almost there, she called out. The chamber shook violently, sparks flying as the core began to collapse. Klaus fought his way back to Olivia, grabbing her arm as the machine system spiraled out of control. "Time to go," he shouted. They ran, the corridors collapsing around them as the core detonated. A massive explosion rocked the battlefield, the shockwave sending alien forces into disarray. Klaus and Olivia emerged from the wreckage, bruised but alive, the remains of the war machine burning behind them. The battlefield fell silent as human soldiers rallied, taking advantage of the chaos to push back the alien forces. Klaus looked at Olivia, her face illuminated by the flames. "We did it," he said, his voice hoarse. She nodded, her expression unreadable. "This is only the beginning." Klaus didn't doubt her. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. The battlefield had fallen quiet in the aftermath of their victory. Fires smoldered across the horizon, and the skies, once filled with the sounds of war, now held an eerie stillness. Klaus and Olivia stood atop a ridge overlooking the shattered remains of the alien war machine. The wind carried the faint scent of ash and ozone, and the glow of distant stars bathed their figures in silver light. Klaus wiped the blood from his blade, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. He glanced at Olivia, who stared out over the battlefield with an expression that seemed at once triumphant and haunted. Her blue skin shimmered faintly, the light reflecting off the sweat that clung to her form. "You okay?" he asked, his voice softer now, stripped of the harshness of battle. She turned to him, her stormy gray eyes meeting his honey-colored gaze. For a moment, the commanding presence that had defined her seemed to falter, replaced by something more vulnerable. "We won today," she said quietly, "but the cost..." Her voice trailed off as she gestured towards the ruined landscape. Klaus stepped closer, his fingers brushing against her arm. "We'll save them. All of them. We just need to keep fighting." Olivia's lips curled into a small smile, though her gaze remained searching. "You believe that so easily. That conviction. It's part of why the bond between us grows so strong." He felt it too, the connection that had begun when his blood revived her. It was no longer just a tether of survival. It was deeper now, a raw and undeniable force that pulled them toward each other. He could feel her emotions as clearly as his own, her pride, her pain, and something else, something that burned bright and urgent. Her hand reached out, resting against his chest. "Your strength feeds mine," she murmured. "And yet it's more than that. When we fought together, it was as if we were one being." Klaus swallowed hard, his heartbeat quickening under her touch. "I felt it too," he admitted, "like we were unstoppable." Her fingers lingered, tracing the contours of his chest plate. "That bond is not just power, Klaus. It's desire. It's trust. It's..." She hesitated, her gaze dropping for the briefest of moments before returning to his. "It's everything." Klaus's breath hitched. The air between them grew charged, the remnants of the battlefield fading into insignificance. "Olivia," he began, his voice low, but he didn't know how to finish. She silenced him by stepping closer, her body mere inches from his. "Klaus, this war has taken so much from me. My kingdom, my people, my sense of self. But you've given me something back, something I thought I'd lost." "What's that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Hope," she replied, her voice trembling with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. The bond flared between them, stronger than ever. It wasn't just energy, it was a fire that burned through every barrier, stripping them of pretense and fear. Klaus could feel her heartbeat sync with his, their connection amplifying with each passing second. The power they shared surged, a heady mix of strength and yearning that made the air around them hum. Driven by instinct, Klaus closed the distance, his hand cupping her face as his lips found hers. The kiss was fierce, unrelenting, a meeting of two forces that had been drawn together by fate. Olivia responded with equal fervor, her hands gripping his shoulders as if anchoring herself to him. The world seemed to dissolve around them, the only thing that mattered being the connection they shared. Each touch, each kiss, fueled the bond, their power growing in intensity. Klaus could feel it coursing through him, a tidal wave of energy that made him feel invincible. When they finally pulled apart, their breaths came in ragged gasps. Olivia's gray eyes blazed with an emotion he hadn't seen before, something beyond desire, beyond power. "This," she said, her voice husky and breathless, "this is what makes us stronger." Klaus nodded, his hand still resting against her cheek. "Then we'll use it. Together." Olivia smiled, the fire in her gaze tempered by a softness that made her all the more breathtaking. Together, she echoed. As they stood there, the bond between them pulsing like a living thing, a new resolve settled over them. Their connection wasn't just a tool for survival. It was the key to victory, a force that would drive them to conquer every obstacle, no matter how insurmountable. But even as they embraced their newfound power, a shadow loomed on the horizon. The war was far from over, and the challenges ahead would test their bond like never before. For now, though, they stood united, human and alien, warrior and princess, bound by fate and by love. The battlefield erupted into chaos once again. Klaus charged forward with his blade gleaming in the dim light, cutting down the alien soldiers that swarmed around him. Each strike was precise, fueled by the bond with Olivia. Across the field, Olivia unleashed devastating blasts of energy, her blue skin glowing as she commanded power with grace and ferocity. They fought as two halves of a whole, separated by distance but connected through their shared strength. Klaus could feel Olivia's presence like a steady drumbeat in his mind, a constant source of power that made him faster, sharper, stronger, until the moment it happened. A plasma bolt struck Klaus's side, searing through his armor and cutting into his flesh. He grunted, stumbling back as pain radiated through his body. Blood seeped through the wound, staining the ground beneath him. He pressed a hand against his side, his vision swimming, and then a gasp echoed in his mind. Far across the battlefield, Olivia faltered. Her hand shot to her side as a phantom pain tore through her. She glanced down, her gray eyes widening in disbelief as a matching wound appeared on her blue skin. The connection between her and Klaus surged, a vivid reminder of their bond. "Klaus!" she cried, her voice ringing in his head as much as in the air. "I'm okay," he growled, gripping his blade tighter. But the pain was relentless, and every step he took sent a jolt through both their bodies. He knew she felt it too. On the other side of the battlefield, Olivia fought through the agony. Her energy blasts faltered for a moment before she gritted her teeth and continued, each strike fueled by sheer determination. She could feel Klaus's pain as her own, and it only strengthened her resolve to reach him. But the wound was spreading both of them, feeling it deepen with every passing second. A piece of the injury began to take form on Olivia's side, as if their shared essence mirrored the damage. The connection between them was more than just emotional or spiritual. It was physical, binding them in ways even they couldn't fully understand. Klaus stumbled, nearly falling as another wave of pain racked his body. He caught himself, his vision blurring. Through the haze, he saw Olivia fighting her way toward him, her movements fierce and unyielding, despite the wound that mirrored his own. He pushed forward, each step a battle against the pain. "Olivia," he murmured, his voice strained but resolute. "I'm coming." The chaos of the battlefield seemed to blur around them, the only thing that mattered being the pull toward each other. The closer they came, the stronger the bond grew, their shared pain intensifying, but so did their power. At last, they reached each other. Klaus collapsed to his knees, his blade slipping from his grasp. Olivia fell beside him, her hand immediately going to his face. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the pain faded into the background, replaced by the overwhelming connection they shared. Without a word, their lips met. The kiss was desperate, filled with the need to heal, to survive, to fight. The bond between them flared with unimaginable intensity, and a brilliant light erupted from where they touched. It surged outward, engulfing the battlefield in a wave of radiant energy. The light was blinding, pure and warm. Klaus could feel the pain in his side vanish, the wound knitting itself together. He could feel Olivia's essence intertwining with his, the bond between them stronger than ever. As the light subsided, the battlefield fell silent. Klaus and Olivia rose together, their wounds gone, their bodies suffused with newfound power. Around them, the alien forces were retreating, their ranks shattered by the sheer force of the explosion of light. Olivia looked at Klaus, her gray eyes shimmering with emotion. "The bond. It's stronger than I ever imagined." Klaus nodded, his hand brushing against her cheek. "It saved us. It saved them." He gestured toward the human forces that were rallying in the wake of the aliens' retreat. The battlefield was theirs, but the war was far from over. Still, in that moment, as they stood together with the power of their bond radiating between them, they knew they were unstoppable. As the alien forces fled into the darkened horizon, a strange stillness settled over the battlefield. The human soldiers, weary and bloodied, stood frozen in awe, their eyes fixed on the spot where Klaus and Olivia remained locked in each other's gaze. The blinding light that had erupted from their kiss had not only driven back the enemy, but also left a profound mark on everyone who witnessed it. Klaus took a deep breath, steadying himself. The pain that had racked his body moments ago was gone, replaced by a warm, thrumming energy that coursed through him. He looked down at Olivia, her face aglow with an otherworldly brilliance. She touched her side where the wound had been, her gray eyes wide with wonder. "We did that," she whispered, her voice a mix of disbelief and reverence. "The bond between us, it's more powerful than I could have ever imagined." Klaus nodded, his expression serious. "It's not just power, it's us, together." Her gaze softened, and for a moment, the fierceness of the warrior princess melted away, revealing the vulnerable woman beneath. "I've never trusted anyone like this," she admitted. "Never let anyone so close." Klaus reached for her hand, his fingers curling around hers. "Neither have I," he said quietly. "But whatever this is, it's real, and it's the only thing keeping us alive." Their moment was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. General Reiner, a grizzled veteran with a scar running down his cheek, approached, his expression a mixture of awe and suspicion. "What in the hell was that?" he demanded, his voice gruff. "That light. It turned the tide of the battle. Whatever you two did, it saved us." Klaus straightened, his grip on Olivia's hand tightening. "It wasn't just us," he said, his tone resolute. "It was the bond between us. Something ancient. Something powerful." Reiner's eyes flicked to Olivia, his skepticism clear. "And her? She's one of them, isn't she? An alien." "I am," Olivia said, stepping forward, her voice calm but commanding. "But I am also your ally. My people are not all your enemies, General. The ones who attacked you, they are a rogue faction. They destroyed my kingdom as well. If you want to win this war, you'll need me just as much as you need Klaus." The general studied her for a long moment before nodding grudgingly. "Fine, but if this bond of yours starts causing problems—" "It won't," Klaus interrupted, his voice firm. "You saw what we can do. We're your best chance of survival." Reiner grunted, clearly unconvinced but unwilling to argue further. "Get some rest. We'll regroup at dawn." Later that night, Klaus and Olivia sat alone on a hill overlooking the battlefield. The sky above was a blanket of stars, their light piercing through the lingering smoke. The warmth of the bond between them lingered, a constant reminder of their connection. "How are you feeling?" Klaus asked, his voice low. Olivia glanced at him, her expression contemplative. "Stronger, more whole than I've felt in centuries." She paused, a faint smile playing on her lips. "And I suppose I have you to thank for that." He chuckled softly. "We're a team now, remember? No need to thank me." Her gaze lingered on him, and for a moment, the weight of their shared experiences hung between them. "Klaus," she said, her voice softer now, "this bond, it's not just about power. It's something deeper, something neither of us fully understands." He nodded. "I know, I can feel it too. It's like we were meant to find each other." She leaned closer, her hand brushing against his. "Whatever lies ahead, we face it together." "Together," he echoed, his voice steady. As their hands intertwined, a faint glow surrounded them, a subtle reminder of the bond that tied their fates. In that moment, they weren't just a human warrior and an alien princess. They were something more, something unstoppable. In the distance, the remnants of the alien forces regrouped, their leaders convening in a shadowy cavern. A figure stepped forward, cloaked in darkness, their voice cold and menacing. "They think they've won," the figure hissed, their tone dripping with venom. "But the light they wield will be their undoing. Prepare the shadow engines. This war is far from over." Back on the hill, Klaus and Olivia gazed out at the stars, unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. Their bond had given them unimaginable power, but it had also made them a target. The dawn broke over the battlefield, painting the scorched land in shades of amber and gold. Klaus and Olivia stood side by side, surveying the remains of the previous day's battle. Soldiers moved in the distance, salvaging supplies, tending to the wounded, and fortifying defenses. The fragile peace was palpable, but both of them knew it wouldn't last. Klaus tightened the straps of his armor, his honey-colored eyes scanning the horizon. "They'll be back." The way they retreated, it wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Olivia nodded, her expression grim. "The rogue faction is relentless. They don't just want victory, they want annihilation. We've disrupted their plans, and now they'll strike harder." A soldier approached, saluting briskly. "Commander Klaus, Princess Olivia, General Reiner requests your presence at the War Council. Klaus glanced at Olivia. Ready? Her gray eyes flashed with determination. Always. The War Council convened in the remnants of a stone bunker, its walls scorched from past battles. General Reiner stood at the head of a makeshift table, flanked by captains and strategists. A holographic map of the region flickered in the center, displaying the advancing alien forces. Our scouts report that the enemy is massing troops here, Reiner said, pointing to a glowing red cluster on the map. They're bringing something new, massive constructs unlike anything we've faced before. Olivia's gaze sharpened. The shadow engines. The room fell silent, her words heavy with foreboding. What are shadow engines? Klaus asked, breaking the tension. Olivia's expression darkened. Weapons of unspeakable power. They draw energy from the void, erasing everything in their path: life, light, even hope. My people outlawed their creation centuries ago, but it seems the faction has unearthed the technology. Reiner's jaw tightened. How do we stop them? The bond, Olivia said, her voice steady. Klaus and we have a connection to the ancient forces that created this technology. It's the only way. Klaus crossed his arms, his stance unyielding. What do we need to do? Olivia hesitated, the weight of her words evident. We'll have to push the bond further than ever before. It's dangerous. If we fail, the engines won't just destroy us. They'll destroy everything. Klaus met her gaze, his voice resolute. We won't fail. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the human and allied alien forces prepared for battle. Klaus and Olivia stood at the forefront, their presence a beacon of hope. Soldiers whispered about the light they had seen, the unexplainable power that had turned the tide. Klaus, Olivia said quietly as they waited for the enemy to arrive. He turned to her, his expression softening. Yeah? She hesitated, her eyes searching his. If this doesn't work, if something happens to me, don't, he interrupted, his tone firm. We're in this together. Nothing's going to happen to you, to us. Her lips curved into a faint smile. You're infuriatingly stubborn, and you wouldn't have it any other way. The bond flared between them, a pulse of warmth and strength that steadied them both. They turned toward the horizon as the first rumble echoed through the air. The shadow engines appeared, towering constructs of obsidian and pulsating blue energy. They moved with an unnatural grace, their limbs cutting through the air like blades. Behind them, the rogue faction's army advanced, a tide of alien soldiers and war machines. The battlefield erupted in chaos. Klaus fought with a ferocity that seemed almost inhuman, his blade a blur as he cut through the enemy ranks. Olivia was a force of nature, her energy blasts tearing apart the constructs as she moved with deadly precision. Together, they were unstoppable until Klaus felt it. A sharp, searing pain tore through his chest. He staggered, his vision blurring as he glanced down. A deep wound had opened along his side, the same place where he had been struck in the previous battle. Far across the battlefield, Olivia cried out, clutching her side as a matching wound appeared on her blue skin. The connection between them pulsed with pain, but she forced herself to keep fighting, her gray eyes scanning for Klaus. I'm coming, she shouted, her voice carrying over the din of battle. Klaus gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain. I'll meet you halfway. They fought their way toward each other, their movements driven by sheer willpower. Each step was agony, the wounds pulling at their strength, but the bond kept them moving, their desire to reach one another stronger than the pain. Finally, they collided in the center of the battlefield. Klaus dropped his blade, pulling Olivia into his arms. Their foreheads pressed together, their breaths mingling as the chaos around them seemed to fade. Olivia, Klaus murmured, his voice raw with emotion. We can't do this without you. Her hand cupped his face, her touch gentle despite the chaos. And I can't do this without you. Their lips met, the kiss filled with desperation and determination. The bond flared once more, brighter and stronger than ever before. A surge of light erupted from where they stood, washing over the battlefield in a wave of radiant energy. The shadow engines faltered, their constructs disintegrating under the force of the light. The rogue faction's forces cried out as the waves swept through them, dissolving their ranks into nothingness. The light consumed everything in its path, leaving behind only peace. When the light faded, Klaus and Olivia stood alone in the center of the battlefield, their wounds healed, their bond stronger than ever. Around them, the remnants of the human and allied forces rose, cheering as the last of the enemy fled. Klaus looked at Olivia, a small smile tugging at his lips. I guess we did it. She nodded, her expression softening. For now, but this isn't the end. No, he agreed. But whatever comes next, we'll face it together. As the soldiers rallied around them, chanting their names, Klaus and Olivia shared a look that spoke volumes. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. Their bond had made them powerful, but it had also made them a target. The fires of war had burned long, but as the sun rose on the scarred battlefield, the first signs of peace emerged. Klaus and Olivia stood before a makeshift negotiation table in the heart of a neutral zone, flanked by representatives from the human forces and the surviving alien kingdoms. Across from them, the leaders of the rogue faction, the bandits who had sparked the devastating conflict, sat with grim faces. The bandit commander, a hulking alien with jagged blue skin and a menacing glare, leaned forward. His voice was rough, tinged with frustration and resignation. "You've forced our hand, Princess Olivia. Warrior Klaus, we can no longer deny the power you wield together." Klaus remained silent, his honey-colored eyes locked on the commander. Olivia, ever the diplomat, stepped forward, her voice calm yet firm. "Your forces are broken, Commander. The shadow engines destroyed. The choice before you is simple. Sign this treaty, or face annihilation." The commander's jaw clenched, but he couldn't deny the truth. His armies were scattered, his weapons obliterated. He glanced at the other leaders of the rogue faction, their expressions grim but resigned. One of them, a wiry alien with sharp, angular features, spoke up. "And what guarantees do we have that your alliance will not turn on us once the treaty is signed?" Klaus stepped forward then, his voice steady and resolute. "The guarantee is this. The war ends here, for all of us. If you lay down your arms and abide by the terms, no one will seek vengeance. But if you refuse..." He let the threat hang in the air, his gaze unwavering. Olivia placed a hand on Klaus's arm, her touch grounding him. She turned her attention back to the bandit leaders. "This is not just about you or us. It's about the survival of both our worlds. We've all lost too much already. Let's not lose more." For a long moment, silence stretched over the gathering. Then, with a reluctant sigh, the bandit commander picked up the quill-like instrument before him and scrawled his mark on the treaty. One by one, the other leaders followed suit. "It is done," the commander said, his voice heavy. "The war is over." As the news spread across the battlefield and beyond, celebrations erupted among the human and alien forces. Soldiers embraced, their cheers echoing through the ruins of what had once been a theater of destruction. Klaus and Olivia stood at the heart of it all, their presence a beacon of hope. General Reiner approached, his usual stern expression softened by the rare hint of a smile. "I didn't think I'd live to see this day," he admitted, extending a hand to Klaus. "You've done something incredible here." Klaus shook the general's hand, then nodded toward Olivia. "We did it together." Reiner's gaze shifted to Olivia, and he offered her a nod of respect. "You've earned your place here, Princess. Whatever differences we had, they're in the past now." Olivia inclined her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "Thank you, General. I hope we can build something better together." That evening, as the celebrations continued, Klaus and Olivia found themselves alone on a quiet hill overlooking the encampment. The stars above shone brightly, untainted by the smoke of battle. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the air was still. Klaus sat beside Olivia, his expression contemplative. "We actually did it," he said, almost as if trying to convince himself. "The war is over." "For now," Olivia replied, her tone wistful. "But peace is fragile. It will take more than treaties to keep it." Klaus nodded, his gaze drifting to the stars. "And we'll make sure it holds. Together." Olivia turned to him, her gray eyes softening. "You've changed me, Klaus. When this started, I thought I was nothing more than a warrior, a relic of a bygone era. But you've shown me what it means to hope again." Klaus met her gaze, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "And you've shown me what it means to fight for something bigger than myself." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the bond between them pulsing with warmth. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, their hands intertwined. "What happens next?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Klaus's smile widened. "Whatever comes, we face it together." As they sat there, the world around them finally at peace, the bond they shared felt stronger than ever. They were no longer just a human warrior and an alien princess. They were leaders, partners, and something far greater, a beacon of hope for the future. And for the first time since the war began, the future felt bright.